So, hi guys, Tim and Toby here for the last episode, episode 3 of the Germany Rise and Fall, 1933 to 1945. This one, third episode, we'll be talking about kind of late 1945 and then into the clean-up of Germany in 1946 and of course the Nuremburg trials in 1946. So, as I just kind of reiterate what I said in the last episode with Toby as well, Germany had set up the home defence system, the Volkssturm, to basically defend the Third Reich and Berlin to the last, to the death, basically, with having really no, their own uniforms, hat, coats, scarves, anything they like to wear, really non-military uniforms, just to get weapons in civilians' hands to defend Germany from Russia, where Russia was bearing down on them. So basically, you had from that side going into Germany, you had Russia. Then you had this side coming into Germany, or technically Berlin. It's really is the British army. Then you had just in the middle, you had the American army. So basically, Germany was completely bottlenecked, squeezed in so tight that was it. Of course, there was Allied bombing as well. Precision bombing of Berlin as well. Also, whilst Russia was moving through areas like Poland, that's where Poland basically brought back into light after 1939, was saved from Germany, German powers. Russia also entered into little pockets, which Toby will explain in a second, called Latvia and Kurland, and these little pockets are basically German stragglers were mopped up. So, do you want to explain, Toby?
So, basically, as a result of the vast Russian advances in 1944, Adolf Hitler had locations ordered really to be defended to the last man, and they're not just on the coast like some people seem to think, they're everywhere. And that lost Germany a lot of soldiers. I mean, in one battle it cost pretty much an entire division during the Russian assault in 1944, and when they just came swarming across the very good tank ground of Eastern Europe, the Germans in certain places on peninsulas and other places just got completely cut off and could only be resupplied by sea. So you end up with places like Kurland, Latvia. All of those places eventually fell in 1945, and it was among probably the most violent fighting of the entire war. You have the Red Army who's kind of out for revenge, and you have the Germans who really at this stage have nothing more to lose. So, their backs against the wall, they're just going to keep fighting, not only because some of them were just fanatics, but also because a lot of them, they just didn't have a choice. They couldn't just, stop fighting. It's impossible.
Yeah, well said. Thanks, Toby. So as Britain and Germany, Britain, Russia and America all came on at three sides into Berlin, once everything was established and Berlin was in Allied powers, Britain and Russia and America came up with different areas of what they call theirs. So the British sector, the Russian sector, and the American sector. So for example, take this book as Berlin. British sector was here, Russian sector was here, American sector was over there. So, and so basically there were British, Russian and American, of course, policemen, military police, guardsmen on guard at each sector as Germans came in and Russians came in from each sector. Of course, stamping and checking passes, of course. They didn't want any spies, like in the next couple of years they would be. So then 1946 came along. Germany, well, really the Allies, basically ordered, well, it started in late 1945 as well, but in 1946 the Allies started a big clean-up operation of Germany, getting the German civilians to build and actually to see what the destruction was really like. Going on, like in London, for example, there'll be houses destroyed, so they got the German civilians who basically they lied about, oh, we don't know this war was going on. Well, of course they did, because they were there. And they got them to do the dirty work of cleaning up the bricks and the debris and everything from Berlin and everything like that. And after that, in about November, kind of October, November time, 1946, you had the German war trials, the Nazi war trials, known as the Nuremburg trials, because it was in Nuremberg itself, where it took quite a lot, tens of Germans, including Hess and Goering, to basically be sentenced, well, of course, trialled first for what they did, and sentenced. And he's actually, my grandfather himself was actually, he did his military service all fine and well, an old soldier during the war, a veteran if you can class, even a veteran before D-Day in 1944. 1946 he was given command of guarding Hermann Goering's actual cell, and Hermann Goering was actually in that cell as my grandfather was guarding it. And there were stories that my grandfather told my dad, which my dad passed down to me, that every time he would look through the little slit, the little gap through the door, Goering used to little kind of smirk at my grandfather, the guard, basically. He was the Devonshire regiment at that time. He was the Dorsets, but then he transferred to the Devons. But yeah, so every Nazi who did, war crimes, had their own separate trial, and eventually, got hung because of it. Goering didn't. He survived the hangings, but in doing so, cyanide was given to him by his they say his own doctor, which went to him periodically, so he got away with it, but then he didn't, because he killed himself by cyanide or tablets, poison. So do you want to explain a bit more about Nuremberg as well, Toby?
Yes, that would be good. So, it really was quite a vast undertaking.
Oh yeah,
there
definitely.
were
Yeah.
many reports to be verified. So I'll do a list of a few of those who
Mm-hmm.
were both sentenced to death and escaped in some cases. Interestingly, so you have first with the dead. So Heinrich Himmler, head of the replacement army, SS, and also a bunch of other stuff, responsible for various nefarious deeds throughout the Third Reich's era. He actually handed himself in as Private Heinrich Hitzinger, and with false paybooks. So when they took him back, he wanted to actually negotiate. People get the impression with someone of the equal rank to him. Of course, he never did. And when he was interviewed, he actually pulled out a pair of spectacles, put them on, and then introduced himself as Heinrich Himmler, wanting to negotiate, which he had tried before, but of course we were not going to negotiate with someone who was responsible for millions of deaths. So when, after a while, they had to do an inspection of him, obviously, to see if he was doing anything dangerous or anything. And a dentist looked into his mouth, and he jerked his head to one side and then bit, and he'd